All right, everybody. Thanks for coming out today. This is a new experiment under the Other Life podcast umbrella. For those of you who have been following everything I've been doing over the past year or two, you'll know that the Other Life podcast until now has pretty much been a kind of whatever I feel like doing that week. And that has its pros and cons. And I decided now to try a very focused series of podcasts. And in this series, we're going to be talking with kind of interesting, creative, or intellectual people on the internet who are pursuing very interesting hustles, pretty much. We're going to be talking about how to make money in interesting ways, pretty much. And we're going to be talking with people who are doing this in ways that are really kind of thinking outside the box. And we're going to try to learn all the different options out there available for people who are trying to make their own way on the internet and looking for, new types of lifestyles that are better than what they kind of currently see as available options. So Aella has been kind enough to be my first guinea pig in this experimental series, because Aella's been working on OnlyFans recently. And OnlyFans is something we'll break it down for you in just a minute, but I think the quickest way to summarize it for people who have no idea what we're talking about today is it's an app that seems to be kind of revolutionizing the adult industry. And we're going to learn what it's all about, what it's like, what Aella's experience has been so far, and hopefully we can learn a thing or two about, kind of internet economics and how attraction and desire and income are evolving today. So thank you very much for coming out, Aella. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And you're one of the few people who I'm doing a second round with. I haven't done too many second rounds on my podcast, so I'm happy to have you a second time.
Yeah.
I'm glad you must have enjoyed it somewhat, I guess, the first time around.
Right. I was just going to say that. I don't really remember what we talked about, but I remember I had a good time.
You remember not hating it, I guess.
Yeah.
You volunteered to do this. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful. So let's just get right into it then. So why don't we start by just kind of, you can break it down better than I can, I'm sure. How would you describe OnlyFans to someone who has no idea what we're talking about?
Like Patreon for sex workers, sort of.
Okay.
But really simplified, you tend to subscribe to a girl. She sets her own price, you pay it, and it takes money out of your account every month. And then there's a couple other ways that you can give her money in smaller amounts through the platform, such as unlocking direct to view content or tips or fundraising. This is the basic system.
Right. So my understanding, I did some research on, research. No, I'm just kidding. Actual research. But my understanding is there's actually a lot of options for how you can kind of package things and sell them. Right. So there's a kind of subscription element like Patreon, right? But then there's also kind of one-offs you can do. So why don't you break that down a little bit exactly? It'll be interesting to kind of get into the details of what, as a creator on OnlyFans, what really are all of your options for packaging items and selling them?
Right, so you can have, there's two types of accounts. You can have free and paid. OnlyFans allows girls to have, I'm going to say girls by default because I'm used to camming, which is primarily female. So I apologize if that's just the way that I refer to this. But
cool.
You have two basic accounts, free and paid, which is can be associated with the same girl. So I'm according to their service, allowed to have two. And with your free one, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe at all. You can put unlock to view content on the feed. So you can scroll down her feed and you see something with a little lock mark on it, and then you click it and pay some money and you get to unlock it. That's the free account system. And with the paid one, you have to subscribe to view everything on the timeline. You don't have to unlock, it's just automatically viewable. But you can also get DMs from the girl where she can send you a thing to unlock privately in your PMs. So a lot of girl strategies revolve around either being particularly subscription heavy and making most of their money through that and providing a lot of free content inside, or cheaply pricing your mass DMs, or be amassing a whole bunch of followers because you have a very low subscription price, and then really working the pay to view model once they're in.
Right. And one of the things I find very fascinating about this is there are all these options, right, for how you can structure your business model in a sense. And it's not really clear a priori, what is the optimal, right? So there's this kind of mass experimentation going on right now, really. And so I would love to hear kind of how are you strategizing your business model? What are the choices you're making and the wagers that you're making on what's optimal?
Yeah, I'm really not sure. I've only been seriously doing this for a month and a half. So, and there's a lot about this that I'm really realizing that I don't really know. But it's only seriously picked up in the last 6 months, I think. most of the top girls right now started about 6 months ago, from what I can see.
There's been an explosion recently in the past few months. Yeah.
Right. I forgot, what was your question again?
Oh, just I'm curious, how are you thinking about the strategic choices and options of structuring your business model since you have all of these different levers and different ways of packaging? Like, how are you seeing it strategically, and how are you structuring your business model?
So really, I'm kind of being unoriginal. I'm like looking at the ways other girls who are very successful are doing it, and then like kind of trying. So
Smart.
right now, my subscription price is like $23, which is relatively high. Yes.
A month. Okay.
Most girls, maybe are between like $5 is pretty average, maybe $3, and then like 15 is usually like kind of rare to see. So I'm at 23. My friend is at $30. So this like does the thing psychologically where you're like conveying yourself as a really high value thing, but like also reduces the amount of followers you have following you, and thus like the amount of sales you can make on the platform.
Right, but it also lowers your kind of customer service costs too, right?
Like as in you have fewer people that you have to talk to.
Not only, yes, that is one part of it, fewer people, but also you're weeding out probably more annoying people, perhaps.
This is probably pretty likely. I think like you just have to really have a different kind of strategy when you're doing like very low subscription price and very high churn, because this is also a thing. There's churn. So like girls on average have about a 50% resub rate. So you can see the amount of people subscribe to you that have their resub turned on, and this appears to be about 50% even, and it stays around that point for basically all girls that I've ever heard say anything about it.
And wait, resub means what?
The amount of people you have subscribed to you that have it turned on to renew your subscription to you
automatically.
Right. Otherwise, it'll just turn off in a month, and then your subscription count drops by the person that left.
Oh, so that sounds huge, right? You need to push people to do the resub.
Right. And so most people have like a calculation of the amount of subs that they need to gain every day in order to maintain or have a certain percentage of growth. And for a lot of the top girls, this could be like 50 to 100 people every single day.
Right. Wow. Okay. So before we get into this too much, maybe to motivate this for people, could you tell us a little bit about your revenue figures? Give us a snapshot of your metrics, would you?
Yeah, I made $14,000 in April, which was the first month that I tried to do this.
All right. And how much of that is scheduled to renew?
So right now my resub rate is 64%.
Okay.
And it started out much lower. I think the first time I measured my resub rate, it was at 45%. And top girls in this area I've seen like screenshots of figures like $35,000. One girl had, I think, like $700,000 made last year or something.
And of that 14,000 you made in the first month, how much of that is coming from the monthly subscription versus the one-off things that you do for people or offer people?
I can take a moment to check this specifically if you want, but off the top of my head, I think
just roughly, like, what would you guess?
75% subscription.
Okay, interesting. Now, how much have you really started kind of experimenting and testing or optimizing for those one-off things? Because I imagine you could get pretty clever and come up with like really expensive things, right?
Yeah. Well, it's all gets into the whole like fucking branding bullshit and like marketing. So like I recently did a game, right, where I sent 3 photos. One of them was a sexy nude. The other 2 were like random art pieces, and they were all priced the same amount, and you can't see which one is which. And so I said, try and unlock the one that you think is the nude, right? So it's like the stupid little game. This is one example. Or girls will do the thing where they'll send out a very cheaply priced thing, and then they say the first 20 people to buy get it, and then I'm unsending, because you can like pull things out of people's inboxes if you want. And then after that, they'll resend for the proper full price. So there's like a whole bunch of like random little strategies that you can do.
Right. So how would you describe your brand on OnlyFans?
I'm very confused about this. I am having like some sort of identity crisis, which is not sure. So I've had a lot of really inconsistent pricing for a while. I'm slowly starting to figure out what I'm doing, but it's definitely like very slice of life sort of thing. So like I posted, tours of my new apartment. I just moved, which is why this is a wreck right now. And
you upgraded your apartment because you got those OnlyFans bucks coming in.
Yeah, actually, kind of. Yeah, I wanted to move for a while, but this really gave me like the push to be able to do that.
Okay, interesting. Now, how many new subscribers are you getting on a like weekly basis or something?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
So I have, I think, 580 subscribers right now. And I've had 95 expired over the course of probably 6 weeks by this point.
Okay. And is that because you didn't make enough preparations for kind of retaining those people? Like, are there things you can do now to retain better?
You can send special things to people who have resub turned on. So a lot of girls will have like a promised reward that will only be sent to people with resub turned on. A lot of girls, including me, are doing random sends. So you can't like just turn it on to get the girl, then turn it off. You have to like have it on all the time to catch all the free goodies she's sending your way.
Oh, interesting. So there's a randomization strategy. See, this, I mean, there's this idea in game theory of what they call mixed strategies. And yeah, so that actually makes a lot of sense. Actually, if you can randomize, you can actually you can milk, I don't want to sound like too exploitative of people or whatever, but you can get more out of them. Or it's also like the what do they call it? Like the behavioralists call it the variable pacing. Those experiments with rats, right? Like if you give them cocaine on a variable schedule,
Right.
they actually get like more addicted than if you give it to them on a consistent schedule or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think this is true. I think this is like sums up a lot of my approach to OnlyFans right now, which is kind of terrible. I like admit that this is kind of a morally gray area, but a lot of my thinking about how to work with this is I literally just model it off of phone app games. I'm like, what are the little techniques of these phone games that I like to play and I play for way too many hours? Like, what do they do to get me to spend more money or more time or whatever on their thing? So randomization is a really big one. Giving people like the illusion of control is another one.
Okay, this is fascinating. So, right. So, okay. So, um, do you anticipate that do you feel like you have growth rates? Like next month is going to be significantly more than 14,000, or what does it look like?
So it really depends. Right now, girls who are doing well have established a very good funnel, which I have failed to do. So I have like basically a core set of followers which are following me, and I have a strong sense that I'm going to tap that at some point and it's going to trail off. So really good girls are establishing funnels mostly on Reddit. Seems is the
Really?
primary one that I've heard. So there's these Telegram groups which I'm like a part of, and it's overwhelming, but it's just like hundreds of girls like going at Reddit strategy and like having like lists and comparing notes about like what are the best subs to post on and at what time.
Right. Okay. So for people who don't know what we're talking about, a funnel is this word out of business land that pretty much refers to kind of the flow of people into your money-making schemes. Pretty much at the top of the funnel is sort of the public, and it's the larger number of people who get exposed to what you're doing in any way. And then you slowly kind of bring them down into the funnel where they pay for things. So what is your funnel then? Is it mostly through Twitter? Is that the top of your funnel?
I'm trying to avoid Twitter.
Are you?
I'm trying to keep my Twitter like a little separate. But right now, yeah. So Twitter, Snapchat. I have randomly a whole bunch of followers on Snapchat. I
Yeah.
haven't really paid attention to Snapchat in years, but I posted like, hey, I'm on OnlyFans now, and I got a whole bunch of subscribers, which is very bizarre.
Well, for a while, Snapchat was kind of a poor man's OnlyFans because people were doing like private snaps and stuff like that for money. That there was a bit of a culture around that for a little while. So it makes sense that you would find some traction there incidentally.
Yeah, and I never quite got into the OnlyFans, or sorry, the Snapchat for business thing. Mine was free, which
Mm.
now ends up like it's a really good move because I amassed a really big group.
Okay, so you're saying that most of the top of your funnel is coming through Twitter, but you're not sure if you're comfortable with that or what?
Yeah, I want to move away from like the people who have been diehard fans for 7 years. Like most of the people following me are people who've been following me for a really, really long time.
And you want to avoid them because they kind of respect you for other reasons, and you want to kind of maintain that, or what? What is it?
So there's like a weird. So there's the people that followed me when I was doing porn back in the day, and then there's the people who are following me now, and they're like, "Oh, how exciting! This girl that's non-porn is turning into porn." And so we have like these different sections. I'm saying that they're an inexhaustible resource. Like these
You'll run out of that.
dry up. Right. So I'm like, I feel uncomfortable. I feel insecure because I know that this is limited and I don't know when that well is going to run dry.
I see. So have you experimented with other top of the funnel places? Like, are you active on Reddit or what are you doing?
Yeah. So Reddit, I have a lot of plans for it. I haven't really gotten into it because I've been so busy with moving the last few weeks. But I started to dabble. Pornhub is a big one. A lot of girls have started releasing their porn for free on Pornhub, which is, and like putting links to their OnlyFans in their profile. There's Red GIF. So I don't know if you've Giphy Cat, the website.
I think so.
which is a primary website that Reddit uses to host GIFs, or like people host it on GiphyCat and then post to Reddit, and then it's integrated with Reddit. Well, GiphyCat is making a new website to move all of its adult content to, called RedGIF. And Reddit just accepted RedGIF to be integrated with its site after trying for months, I think, is what I've heard. I'm very excited. So anyway, I got verified on RedGIF as like an official performer, and like using that because now people are going to navigate to my GIF that is posted wherever and then see that it was uploaded by me, that sort of thing.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
Tumblr. There's, I don't know. Okay, that might be it. It's like Tumblr, Snapchat, Twitter, Reddit, etc.
Okay. Okay. Right. Interesting. And how many hours a week do you work on this?
So the last week or so was kind of abnormal because I've been moving, so I kind of switched
Sure.
my attention to that. But before that, I was spending like maybe 10 hours a day at least thinking about it. It's just like I was dreaming about, I was having trouble sleeping because it was eating my brain, which apparently is a common phenomenon. A lot of the girls I've talked to have had interrupted sleep because it's just hijacking your brain. It's incredible. I'm so impressed.
Wow. So tell me a little bit more about that. Is it negative feelings? Is it positive feelings? Is it, or what exactly is absorbing you?
I feel like I'm skating really fast on like a bar, and either side of me are flames. It's like sort of this feeling of like, this is fun, and I'm afraid that if I make one wrong move, I'll perish. And I know this isn't rational.
And what would the perishing be though?
I don't, just like, you know, you lose
That's
all
just
your
a feeling.
subs, and it's because like there's a sense of having really high income like right at your fingertips. And I think that like is something that a lot of girls really aren't used to at this, as like a really fast and sudden like explosion.
Right.
And so this is like having weird psychological effects.
Right. You're all of a sudden making $14,000 a month. You must be feeling like there must be something wrong here. Something must go terribly wrong at some point. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So fascinating. So on the whole, it sounds like you mostly have positive emotions around it. Or have there been any negative emotions, or has there been anything about it that is notably negative?
So this kind of reminds me when I first started camming, where I was like, oh my God, this is a new thing. It's giving me like a lot of freedom. I'm super excited. And then, you know, fast forward 5 years and I like wanted to tear my eyes out. So right now I'm in the honeymoon phase where I'm like, actually, I can't complain. Right. This is incredible. I'm like happy that OnlyFans is taking 20% because I feel like they deserve it for improving my life so much. Like I'm in like this level of like fanboy at OnlyFans.
Interesting. Now, you said that you were kind of fixating on it mentally for a while. It was absorbing you, but how many labor hours a week were you really putting into the service you were providing?
Not that many.
If you had to guess.
Shit. Maybe like 3 hours a day of like actually clicking on things.
Okay. So economically, this is by far the best thing available to someone like you by far right now. Is that fair to say?
Besides like straight up high-end escorting, yeah.
Right. Okay. And so I'd be remiss not to ask, what are your personal lines with how far you go? Like, are you doing full nudes? Are you doing actual sex, or what? Or how do you see that? And what are your lines if you have them?
I'm still trying to figure that out. Right now, I'm doing full nudes on my main feed and then sending out like actual sexual content to people in pay-to-view DMs.
And if, by the way, please stop me if at any point I'm prying too much. I'll just shut up if you tell me to. It's no problem at all. But I'll just kind of keep asking until you put me in my place. And so the sex that you sell, is that with like a boyfriend or something, or is that with like, who are you doing that with, if you don't mind me asking?
They're old. So the actual porn where it's like with a boy are old videos. I haven't filmed any new porn in a while.
Oh, interesting. Like, so you can repurpose stuff you just have sitting on your hard drive.
Yeah. I don't have a ton. I think I only have like two boy girl videos that like I will sell if somebody asks specifically for them. I have there's lots of girl stuff I need to hunt down. But a lot of it's just like masturbation, which I can just film whenever.
So someone who subscribes at $20 a month gets a feed of you regularly posting full nudes.
Yeah.
Is that right? But you have them pay extra if they want the actual sex videos.
Right.
And if you don't mind me asking, how much do you charge for those?
So they're heavily discounted. I price them about 50% of what I used to sell them for on my free cams. So for example, I have like a really awesome boy girl video, which is super hot. And I used to sell it for $100 on my free cam. So I sell it for $50 on OnlyFans.
And what's the logic for discounting it?
They're already paying to get into the thing. And I want to like retain them as like an ongoing, like monthly customer.
Okay. Right. That makes sense. And my understanding is people can kind of send special requests to you. Is that right? And you can kind of like put a price on it. Has that happened, or do you have any interesting stories about that?
Yeah. Sorry. I'm not like a huge personal request. People have been relatively not that personal requesty. I think there's like someone's very interested in stockings right now, so I gotta like pull out my stockings. But yeah, usually people who do personal requests right now, because of like the kind of audience that I have, are like not people who are very like dedicated or high paying.
Fascinating. So only a few hours worth of work gets you 14,000 a month, and really no negative side effects that you can report yet. Anyway, although you acknowledge that eventually it'll just kind of become like a job with all of its normal annoyances. Now, are you looking at this and you're kind of thinking this is going to spread more and more to women such as yourself, who the deal is just, it sounds like it's too good, right? Like there are probably a lot of people right now who kind of have some moral or personal kind of discomfort with the idea of doing this sort of thing, but then they're going to hear stories like yours and it's just kind of like so much better than any other economic opportunity they have. Do you feel like this has to kind of keep spreading because it's so good, or what's your feeling there?
Yeah, I'm a little confused about that. So this is very similar to camming in the sense that you get a lot of money for a relatively not a lot of work. But it's just kind of like increased, like the positives on it are turned up a little bit. Because like it is more secure than camming, which is a lot of people's primary concern. So I think this is why it's so popular right now. Like it just exploded because of like these reasons. So I don't know if this is going to like cause a crash in the future, like if everybody's going to get sick of it or the market's going to get oversaturated.
Right.
Seems likely.
Were you ever on Patreon?
Yeah.
But
I tried briefly.
And you didn't have good results, or what happened?
Yeah, not really.
Yeah.
But I'm not really familiar with like it, and also I'm not like that excited about having to like actually output real content.
Yeah. It's a similar game as the one you're describing with OnlyFans, but yeah, different in many ways, I think. Now, are there people on OnlyFans that do non-sexual content?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can just do like kind of totally fully clothed kind of like private messages to people. And are there people making good money doing non-sexual stuff on OnlyFans?
I think there are. I know of one girl who's making good money who I think she does like maybe nudes, but it's not anything sexual, I think. Again, this is new. I'm sure that this is going to happen because this has happened with camming. So yeah.
Right. Interesting. And do you know, are there many men on there, or do you know any?
So right now my exposure is mainly like online groups where a bunch of girls who do OnlyFans like talk. And that's sort of my exposure to like what the landscape is like right now, and there's no men in those.
Okay, because I'm very curious just to see what would happen if I made an account on there.
Yeah.
And it was just totally not sexual. It's just like I'll send like private videos. I don't know, just whatever I feel like, but with no sexual bent at all. I wonder if that would have any traction, or if it would just completely fall flat.
To try.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No cost to trying. All right, interesting. So, do you feel like, do you see things you're doing that are particularly effective, and you're like, oh, I need to double down on that maybe other people don't quite understand, or what's like the Aella edge on OnlyFans?
I actually don't feel that good at OnlyFans right now. My edge is just that I have been working on a non-sexual brand for a few years, which is like very unusual for most of the girls here. This is extremely bright. Hold on. Okay. So like a lot of the people who are coming to me are coming for like because they're interested in like this union of like a smart person who has boobs, and it's like really trying to like push both of them onto you at the same time. So that would be like my branding success. In regards to like marketing techniques, I've been experimenting with a bunch of small stuff, but I can't say that I've really found a particular niche that hasn't already been explored by other people.
Now, you never post nudes or anything like that to Twitter, right?
No, I mean I used to. If you scroll back on my feed long enough, like 2014, okay, you'll find them. But
right. Because I know Twitter has a very kind of open policy with nudes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I appreciate your interest in kind of separating those a bit, but that would probably work pretty well.
Probably, that's such a scary thought. I have like a
Yeah.
weird psychology issues now around like Twitter and keeping my brand set, because Aella used to be a porn brand. That was like when I got into porn, I was like, I need a name, Aella, and then it like transitioned to non-porn, and then I was like, okay, now this is like a, I don't know, like a weird controversial question asking brand thing, and now going back into porn, it's just like really bizarre and uncomfortable.
Interesting. Now, could you spin up some machine learning models and make some deep fakes of yourself and then just kind of put them on like an auto scheduled stream on OnlyFans? So you could like basically automate everything using deep fakes and just kind of forget about it and you just have like a growing income every month.
I think. Wait, so maybe you know more about this. I heard that one of the top earning girls on OnlyFans now is in fact virtual.
Really?
I know that this is the case on like Chatterbait, for example, but I remember like I briefly read something about how this is actually true. Maybe not like of a person, but of a fake
Oh,
character.
that's interesting. I got to look into that. That would be fascinating if that was the case.
Hmm.
So, okay, so I have this kind of theory about OnlyFans, and it sounds confirmed or reinforced by what you're saying, which is that I'm thinking about probably the thousands of young women who right now are, let's say, in graduate school. They're doing a master's or they're doing a PhD, right? And they're smart. They're very capable. But academia, just as one example of many career tracks today, is super competitive. There just aren't that many spots out, no matter how smart or good you are. Your chances of having a economically viable and satisfying career in something like academia is just very, very low. Same thing for other things like journalism or whatever. So there's a lot of like smart, capable young women right now who are working hard on some kind of traditional career track, and the number of spots for them is just very limited. So their chances of success are limited. But if they're like maybe in even the 70th percentile of attractiveness, right? Pretty much what we're learning from you is that they could probably starting tomorrow start making bank immediately on OnlyFans. So it seems to me just ineluctable that there's going to be at the margin a kind of mass migration of capable, smart young women if they're at all attractive into this type of thing, right?
This might be like a biased view or like a selection effect or something. Like you may be disproportionately surrounded by really sexually liberated people who like don't really think less of someone for doing sex work. Like you're having me like on your show, and that's something a lot of people wouldn't do. I think that like the pressure to not do sex work is like quite strong in other areas.
But is it so? This is something I'm curious about getting your diagnosis on, because as someone who's kind of participating in this kind of shift into OnlyFans, from the outside anyway, it looks like this is the popularization and the normalization of porn. Essentially, that's what it looks like with looking at the data of all these people, of all these women pouring into OnlyFans. You happen to have done it in the past before porn, but my sense is there's tons of women moving into it for the first time because OnlyFans is making it both easier, but also a bit more private. And there's just so many people doing it now that isn't it becoming, do you feel from your end that it's becoming normalized and the stigma is decreasing because of the new numbers of people rushing into it?
I kind of want to say that the thing that makes me more uncomfortable is the stigma against men. And I feel, I don't know if this is true, but like based on like seeing like increased OnlyFans references, like I feel like I'm also seeing increased references to simps, or like making fun of men for subscribing to OnlyFans girls. So I think that actually kind of worries me more in regards to like normalization of this thing, is that the target seems to be switching a little bit more towards the people that consume the media as opposed to provide it.
Oh, interesting. So it's like as more women play around with porn on the internet, it's the men who are becoming the brunt of the stigma.
So I don't know if this is true. This might just be like the sort of things I happen to be getting fed, but it's just
That's a fascinating idea. That could possibly be true. And have you developed any relationships, like friendships with the other women in these kind of tribes that you're a part of?
You mean other OnlyFans girls?
Yeah, like you said, you participate in Telegram groups and this sort of thing. Are you becoming friendly with any of them? Is it like interesting socially or no?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm maybe less tolerant of this sort of thing than other girls are. I mean, I have my core group of like girls who used to be cam girls who are still my friends, like Infinite T and Awesome Kate, and Ariette, for example. So, but those are like long-term, actually good friends. And I just don't really like the rest of the culture. They really hate me. There's a lot of girls that like really hate my guts because I tweet stuff and they've all blocked me. So I can't get into some groups where they have influence.
Interesting. What do they hate you for?
Just saying things that they consider to be incorrect. Like, I don't really know. I've heard it secondhand that they don't like me, but I'm sure one
Interesting.
of any number of tweets did it.
And do your simps ever ask you kind of like intellectual questions and stuff like that? They want to hear you philosophize?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what are they interested in?
I don't know. I mean, it could be anything. Like, they pick a tweet they like and then respond to it. Like, what do you think about that? Or like, sometimes it's asking about OnlyFans. Like, how do you handle this, socially?
Hmm. Do you think there's a functional relationship between the amount of content that you post to OnlyFans and new signups, or perhaps the intensity or passion of the fans you do have? Like, if you said it doesn't take that much time from you, but what if you did like 5 hours every day posting like videos? Would it accelerate? Would your income accelerate, or is it not really work like that?
I think probably for increasing the funnel is the most important thing.
And by
Because
that, do you mean the top of the funnel?
yeah, the amount of people that are like will subscribe to you on a daily basis and increasing the resub percentage are the two biggest things by far. I think my strategy tends towards getting most of my revenue through subscription and not paid per view. So for me especially, this is like really key.
I wonder if someone like you, since you're known for a more kind of intellectual bent, do you think that you could package some of the porn stuff with some kind of educational stuff? Like, could you do some sort of like sexy tutoring session or something like that for OnlyFans, where you kind of like charge for the value of like education, and you get some porn out of it too?
I have kind of thought about this. The problem is I am not educated myself. And
But people see you as smart, and you could easily kind of frame yourself or position yourself as a kind of tutor or an expert on something.
That's true. I might be able to like read my blog posts topless or something.
It'd be really interesting to learn if that worked.
I think so. Even if people don't like it directly, I think they like the brand that it represents.
Right. See, because if I was, I think that's kind of what's interesting about you, is because you're kind of pretty widely known and respected as a internet thinker and writer. And I imagine that does feed into however your sexual fans see you. I'm sure part of that attraction or that brand that you have as a sexual icon or whatever is inflected somewhat by your intellectual brand also. So it seems to me like my wager, obviously I'm just a third party bystander to all of this, but my mental model of where the culture is going is I suspect you'll see more people who do these kind of interesting, weird combinations where you actually do, I can imagine you, for instance, really kind of developing your brand on OnlyFans with like educational content or something like that.
This is the world that I want to be true. I would love if this could actually be really successful. I think I'm maybe less optimistic about it than you are.
Right. Yeah. Well, who knows if my hunch is right at all? There's only one way to find out, really, and that's experimentally, right? And actually, that's a good question. What kind of data do you get as a user, as a what would you call it, like a poster or whatever, a user of OnlyFans? Do you get data on the system at large at all? Like, do you know, or is that all kind of opaque to you?
Yeah, they don't really tell you much about statistics beyond like your own earnings.
Do they give you analytics on your own content, like how many views a picture gets or this kind of stuff?
No, I don't think
That's interesting. So you don't actually know anything about the performance of individual things you post.
That is correct. I mean, you can see likes and stuff and comments and then sometimes tips, but I don't really know the views. I don't really feel like the views are that interesting. Like I'm imagining like seeing the views on my stuff and.
Well, I just mean for developing a kind of brand content strategy, you would want to have some measurement of different items, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be more relevant if I were like sending out unlockable content and then it like had an impact on what people decided to pay for it to see, I think. I mean, and there's maybe an impact on like resubscribe rate. Like if I'm posting these things and over time my subscribe rate, resub rate goes up, that would be good. But
it'd be interesting if like, because are there any limitations on the file types that you can sell? Like, does it have to be a photo or video, or can you upload like a PDF?
I don't think you haven't tried to do that. I don't think you can, but maybe you can.
Because it'd be cool if you like did some sort of like really brainy, creative, intellectual kind of like blog post, but you kind of mixed into it like porn pictures, and you kind of like and you sold the PDF like as an item or something like that.
I did post some results from an old survey I'd done on my OnlyFans, and I felt really good.
Interesting.
But I think like I have this fantasy of the world where like the thing that turns people on is like intellectual shit, but I really don't think that's true. Like when I was a cam girl, I was like slowly figured out the way to be to make more money, and very much it was use simple words, like don't like talk fast about concepts and use terms. Like that is going to make people leave your room immediately. Like be really clear, be really basic, and like don't go too much into concepts because
Oh,
people
really?
stop paying you.
Interesting. So that was a conventional wisdom in the cam world, and you believed that to be true?
Well, other people didn't have that problem because I don't think they were doing, or they already understood that they weren't supposed to do this. And I figured it out by like trial and error over years.
Interesting. So you feel like complex language was a turnoff, and you did do better if you simplified it?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm just like really pessimistic about the idea that like intellectual content can like make a significant bump. I think it's good for niche. I think that I can probably get like maybe a core of like 30 really dedicated people with that. But if you want to make any sort of significant money, the attention just really isn't there unless you get like a much wider platform. Like if I went on like Joe Rogan or something, then sure, like that would work. But
Fascinating. Okay, interesting. We got an interesting question here from Jeffrey Miller. Shout out to Jeffrey. He says, how much general social stigma do you, Aella, think women face if they're doing high-end escort work versus sugaring versus traditional porn versus camming versus OnlyFans? Will OnlyFans be less stigmatized? So I think he's kind of asking for what's your sense of the rank of stigma across these different forms of sex work?
I think my favorite approach to this question is the stigma inside sex worker culture about different kinds of sex work. I
Okay.
think that, I don't know, I like to imagine that that's, you know, really illuminating, or at least a good like proxy for the way society sees it. But like inside sex work culture, OnlyFans is too new, so I'm gonna leave that out. But so like clothed camming is on the top of the food chain, and then at the very bottom is like low-end escorting. And so like the more interactive you are with the person, like in person, and the more clothes and sexually explicit you are, then the lower you are. So OnlyFans, I don't know if it really has a specific ranking, mainly because people can approach it in such dramatically different ways. Like I think a clothed OnlyFans girl probably is not very stigmatized at all.
Right. But there's an issue here where you don't really know what an OnlyFans adult star is doing in private, right? So like you can say that you only do fully clothed photos, but actually you're selling naked photos on the download to some people who pay you a lot for it, right? Isn't that possible?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of common. Like this is also common in the cam girl world. Like everybody be like, oh no, you know, I would never like fuck my members in person. And but then you always have those girls who are like on the down low are like, well, don't tell anyone. But
Right. So this is the problem. If I were to do a kind of goofy experiment of trying to do a kind of launch my own OnlyFans, and I say like I'm just going to be like selling PDFs on it or something, people will be like, yeah, right, Justin, we know what you're doing on the sly.
Yeah, I think probably a lot of it depends on the branding. I mean, the way that you present. So if you're like a girl who's like in your freshman year of college and you start an OnlyFans, and like if your parents find out, they're gonna be really mad, and your friends, like you can be like, no, don't worry, it's just clothes. Like one of your friends is gonna buy your OnlyFans to see if you're telling the truth. And so like it's just like with that level, I think that if you can like really sell the story that you are not doing a sexual thing, I think it's probably fine.
Right. So okay, so I'm curious in your survey of the lay of the land, since you've been on there for a month, do you notice are there particular things that the successful OnlyFans girls do that are kind of notable, and also notable things that the less successful OnlyFans girls do? Like what distinguishes the most successful from the least successful? What's the most predictive of that, do you think?
So one of my favorite examples is Poindexter. I don't really know how to say her name, but
Okay.
she was, I think, okay, I'm gonna get all of these facts wrong, but something like that. She was like a lawyer or a data analyst, and she's like I don't know how old she's not like very young, and she had never done any sort of sex work before, I believe. And now she's, I'm holding on my computer. Sorry.
Sure.
And now she's making a really significant amount of money. And her strategy is, I think she might put more effort outside of OnlyFans than inside, like to posting funnel. She is basically an incredible funnel, and is constantly creating content and posting it elsewhere with like her links to OnlyFans. And that seems to be the primary thing. And she also like has a subscription based model as opposed to like a pay to view model. Like she's very heavy on the make all your money through the subscription thing. Yeah, so that seems like it's what the most popular girls are doing, are like really significant funnels, and keep retaining customers.
And by that, you mean they're putting most of their effort into public stuff?
Yes.
That brings people in.
Right.
Right. Fascinating. So do you feel like, do you think that there are lessons you've learned from your move into OnlyFans that perhaps illuminate other aspects of the internet or of, this new world of digital hustles? So like, for instance, I wonder if doing OnlyFans gives you a kind of more purified or illuminating kind of perspective on kind of the crowdfunded economy more generally, right? Like, do you have lessons for people who are doing Patreon, maybe from some aspect of human nature that gets revealed all the more radically through OnlyFans? Anything like that?
There's two things I'm thinking of here. One is the surprise that I have around OnlyFans economic model compared to camming, and also like advice. I mean, but the advice would mainly be like really try and expand like the kind of awareness that other people have of you in general. So with OnlyFans, this is like posting to Reddit, for example, and I don't know what the niche would be for you. I think it's probably much harder for other people without clear things like Reddit, which is very easy and simple to do. But like, for example, like me coming on this podcast, like I enjoy it and I like talking to you and I would do this anyway. But like also this serves as like boosting the signal a
For
little.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure of the 19 people who are gathered here today, a few of them are going to become paying subscribers tomorrow.
I hope so. And the second part is the surprise that I have around the model of OnlyFans. So if you had asked me for like predictions of the sorts of things that work well when it comes to the sex industry, based on my experience of camming, I would have given you like a completely wrong answer.
Oh, really?
Like, in regards to predicting what makes OnlyFans good. Like with My Free Cams, a huge part of what makes you successful is the competition. Like the men get to see each other and compete against each other with money. And the girls like very public. There's not really much private interaction. Whereas OnlyFans is completely on its head. You don't have whales. Like just whales are gone now. I've heard so many girls talking about how like the people that used to give them all of their money are just like gone from the face of the earth, but they're still making more money from like a whole bunch of little people. And this is like blasphemy when it comes to cam girl strategy. And there's also like much more personalized interaction. And I did not think this was going to work. I thought that like the thing that worked was competition, but also this is a really viable strategy. And I think it's tapping into like a type of the market that wasn't available before.
That is fascinating. I'm really glad you shared that with us, because that is quite profound. It's also kind of profound because that essentially has regressive income effects. In other words, the rich guys are getting off relatively easy, and the poorer guys are paying relatively more. So that's kind of interesting.
For OnlyFans?
Well, if what you're saying is true, that back in the day, it was widely understood that successful adult stars made much of their money off of a small number of presumably quite wealthy men who paid much more than the other men. You could argue that's a more progressive distribution, right? Whereas the compression that you're referring to now, where the whales go away, it's essentially a kind of regressive effect on the it's a regressive income effect, in other words, where the smaller guys are paying more relatively, so in other words, what I'm saying is the rich guys who back in the day would have been whales are getting way more value relative to what they're coughing up.
For some, like I feel like kind of it's the opposite. Like, like now the poorer you are, the better shot you have at getting what you want. Like,
okay,
if you're in a cam girl's room and you've got $20 to spare, you can pay her that $20, and the kind of attention you get from her or like the sense, I mean, even if this isn't true, like the sense of a personalized connection, like lasts for maybe a minute, and is gone forever. Here you get like ongoing access to her content with this $20, and she's probably going to talk to you. It's like, it's so different, and it really feels like I'm suddenly paying a lot more attention to people with a lot less money, and much less attention to people with a lot more money.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think my comment had more to do with just the income effects, but you're saying the actual value that people get from what they're paying for is a kind of net gain for all of the subscribers that you have. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, that's probably why it's blowing up, right? Because it's a win. It sounds like it's a win-win for everyone. So that's why it's taking off. Yeah. Fascinating. But you said you don't really put that much labor time into it. So you can't be developing like particularly deep relationships with anyone. I'm guessing. Yeah,
that's true. But it doesn't take much. It's just like, hi. I send like messages maybe twice a day, just go through really fast and be like, hey, what's up? I kind of feel like me talking so blatantly about my OnlyFans experience is going to lose me some subscribers, but that's okay.
No, I think people will respect you for your honesty. Now, what can someone expect if they become a subscriber of yours? So you pretty much said before they'll get a kind of regular feed of nudes, and then if they want better stuff, they have to pay for that separately. Is there any kind of like face-to-face? Like, will people get to talk with you at all, or no?
So OnlyFans does have an option for live streaming, which I haven't tried yet. And I don't believe you can do this privately. I don't know if they have any plans for integrating like through the platform personal interaction, and it is scary or against the terms of service or something to try and transition off the platform for like a paid thing. So if I wanted to have a one-on-one with you that you're paying for, like there's no way to do that through the OnlyFans platform, and it's scary to try and move off. So right now, not quite. You can have audio clips. You can send audio clips back and forth right now.
Okay. And have you been propositioned in any way that you had to reject, or have you had any crazy requests or crazy inbound, anything that has been horrible or particularly notable?
This is a very common question when people are asking about sex work, like what's the craziest thing people want you to do? And I feel like I just don't remember it when it happens because it's so not like meaningful or relevant to me. Like somebody will be like, hey baby, like I want to see your cum over your own face, suck your fingers, put your head in a hole. And I'm like, I just don't even hear it anymore.
Right.
So
interesting.
I want to be able to give you a good answer, but
okay, yeah, no, that's fair. I think I came across recently someone saying that as a adult star on OnlyFans, you can let people pay you for them to send you like dick pics and shit like that. Is that real?
I haven't tried this. I've heard of it, or like $10 for a dick rating or something.
Yeah, I've heard dick ratings. That's something you can sell, right?
Yeah, I was under the impression that you just have them pay you $10 and then you tell them what you think of your dicks. I have received dick pics that I did not get money for on OnlyFans.
Right, but you can say like, if you want a dick rating from me,
yeah,
$10, $20, whatever you want to price it at, and then they're like allowed to send you their dick pic, and then you give them a rating. I think that's hilarious. That's a hilarious commodity to offer.
I read a guide to dick ratings, which is you always say 8.5. It's just the standard.
That's just the answer you give to everyone.
Then you have like 8.5.
Well, that makes sense actually that women would converge on one answer because, too high it's going to have bad effects. Too low it's going to have bad effects probably. 8.5. Yeah, that's funny.
And if you're doing it mass, like a lot of girls will do this who have thousands of followers, and so you get like hundreds of payments for these dick pics. So like you can't just like copy paste 8.5.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I wonder if, given your brand of kind of the cerebral, high IQ, kind of tech e-girl / adult star, I wonder if you could do something where like you offer to kind of like read someone's like blog post and give like a review or something like that. I wonder.
I would happily do that for payment.
It's fascinating.
The problem is it's not as good to do things that aren't scalable. So if somebody asks me for a custom photo, I'm much more likely to do that if it's something that I can resell later on. If it's like, say my name, while you like whisper into your own butthole with the tube, like I'm not going to do that because I can't sell it again.
Right. Yeah. Now, at what point of income on OnlyFans do you have to really start thinking? Because like this is so much money for you all of a sudden. Like, are you thinking now, like, should I hire a manager to help scale this or this? Are you thinking about these types of questions?
Yep.
So share with us a little bit about where you at in that regard. Like what's kind of the strategic vision moving forward?
This is the one thing that I think I probably don't want to talk about right now.
Ooh, okay. Because
Yeah.
competition or what?
Because I think manager is like actually bad branding. Like if people know that I'm working with a manager or thinking about working manager or might have in the past or in the future, anything around this, it feels like actually dangerous to income for me.
Oh, is that right? Why? Because you think your fans dislike it?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. No problem. Yeah. Do you feel like there's anything, I'm curious, like, you said one example before of something that you believed previously, but it was totally overturned by getting involved in OnlyFans. Was there anything else? I'm kind of curious, like, did you have priors that you brought into this that were similarly shocked in any other way?
I mean, besides the competition thing, I think that's primarily it.
Right. I wonder if are there ways that you can kind of reintroduce that element at all? I guess it's all very siloed, is what you're saying. Like the experience is very contained and between you and your followers, and there's not really much competitive dynamics in the OnlyFans interface.
I'm trying a raffle right now where people can see what other people are tipping. And I'm gonna like draw a name of somebody who tipped for the thing, and then they get a prize. And this is not performing as well as maybe it would have on my free cams. It's really hard to compare directly. There might be other things at play, but I actually don't think that the competition works as well here.
That's interesting. I wonder in your case if possibly live streaming on YouTube would be a really good top of the funnel thing, because you're smart and verbal, and I'm sure you have no problem just talking a lot about ideas and whatever you're interested in. And like YouTube is like, there's tons of people on YouTube right now because of the pandemic. Like my view counts for pretty much everything I do is higher than average.
Oh.
So I feel like if you just like fired up a YouTube and just did that somewhat regularly and just mentioned like at the beginning and the end that you're on OnlyFans, I wonder if that could be powerful for you.
Yeah, it depends. It's like you have to make the trade-off of like time spent doing a thing versus subscribers. So like on Reddit, if you get a good upvote, like it takes you 5 minutes to do the whole thing, and then you might get like 30 subscribers. Because like the amount of people that like on YouTube, I'm imagining it would probably take at least several months to get a view count where I would start to see any sort of impact on my subscriber count on OnlyFans. So I like the idea. It's just like in regards to efficiency, it's probably not top of the list.
It's a good question, honestly. I would love to hear if what your results were, either positive or negative. I think there's honestly some probability above zero that if you literally just fired up a live stream on YouTube like tomorrow and you tweeted a link to the live stream and just talked for like 15 minutes, and just at the beginning and the end, you just mentioned that you had an OnlyFans. If you're interested, go to this link. I think there's a decent chance you could actually get like some number of subscribers even just from doing that once. So you could learn pretty quickly if it's worth it or not.
Yeah, I actually think I would predict that I would see a boost in resub rate over subscriber count. It might be worth it for just like strengthening the existing brand for people who already are paying attention to me, which is what happened with camming. I feel like I'm talking about camming so much, but like there were definitely some things which got me like a certain amount of attention that didn't actually increase the amount of people that paid me, but increased my value in the eyes of people who were already paying me. And, and what you're describing sounds like it would be much more likely to do that.
Yeah, that's true. I guess there is this kind of idea in the content creator world that personalized kind of FaceTime with people is really valuable to subscribers and fans or whatever. And so it sounds like if OnlyFans doesn't actually have an interface for that kind of live streaming functionality where you can regularly kind of give them this feeling of live interaction, I feel like that could be a type of creative play that could pay itself off.
So OnlyFans does have a live stream. It's just not private. So you can do a generalized one, very similar.
Oh, right. Okay. And it goes to all your subscribers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool then. Yeah. 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 Interesting. Very interesting. And the subreddits that you participate in as top of the funnel activity, are those community subreddits on other topics, or are those like porn related subreddits?
They're porn.
So like, what are examples of them? I'm curious. Like, what are they called?
Like r/titty drop is one. So there, I have a list that I'm like planning on really going for, that I haven't. Adorable porn, because I'm like, I like cute faces. The ratio, I think there's like a sexy tummies one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you get data on the demographics of who your audience is on OnlyFans, like the types of subscribers that you have? Do you know anything about them?
Not officially, but I have a thing where if you subscribe, I send you an automatic message being like, hey, thank you, blah, blah, blah. Also, if you tell me where you found me, I will send you a titty pic. So like a good chunk.
Oh, okay. So you can kind of, you can incentivize them to give you customer data, basically.
Yes. And right now, the majority of my followers come from Twitter.
Okay, interesting. That's pretty clever, because I wonder if you really developed a serious play on that front and you could get a good amount of data on all of your subscribers on OnlyFans, you could leverage that powerfully, right? You could imagine doing like Facebook ad campaigns targeting the people that you know are the types of people who want to buy your porn, that kind of thing.
I like that idea. It's really hard to advertise anywhere besides porn sites. Although if you were doing like a secondary thing, like if I were advertising something that wasn't porn, and then from that, then that might work.
Dude, that's the play, I think. Yeah, you advertise, like what you could do if you wanted to is you could develop like one prong of your strategy is developing like your kind of above ground intellectual blog content, like making videos, making blogs or whatever, ebooks, whatever you want, of like the stuff you think and the stuff you write, which people are interested in its own right. But then like have a very clever kind of wrap that cleverly into a funnel for OnlyFans also.
Yeah.
And you could use like data that you've collected about your OnlyFans subscribers to pretty much market, the kind of above ground content to people who you already know in advance have a high propensity of wanting to buy your porn.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Fascinating. Many opportunities. Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I feel like this has been a really interesting, pretty deep dive into OnlyFans and how it works. I'm kind of curious to maybe just briefly, if you don't have to run right now, open it up to if there's anything I haven't asked you about that maybe you're kind of chomping at the bit to share. I remember we chatted in DMs at one point, and you just said like you have so many thoughts about it. So I'm just kind of curious. Is there anything we haven't touched that people might find interesting?
I remember thinking about one thing. I'm probably not going to remember it though. I should have.
That's right. Yeah.
No, I think that's all the things.
And what would you say to people who are thinking about getting into this OnlyFans? Like, are there pitfalls to be aware of, or are there like really important tips or tricks that people should be aware of? Anything you'd like to impart for people who might be thinking about doing this for the first time?
I actually kind of want to discourage it a little bit.
Okay.
Mainly because I think viewing girls who are doing really well already might be like kind of a biased thing. You're not really seeing the girls that aren't doing very well. Fuck, wow, my brain just, hold on.
That's right.
Oh, right. So me and a lot of the girls I know who are doing well came out of already having an established fan base online or having done porn or camming or something like that for a long time. And so if you are just starting with this, it might be like really shitty at first. It might be like a very slow process to gain subscribers. So don't go into this being like, yes, instant money just pouring on my face. It's gonna be super easy. It's probably not gonna be easy. If it were really actually that easy, then we would probably see like a very different kind of market online.
Yeah, that's interesting. I suspect it's easy if you already have an audience on some platform, right? Because some of those people will convert to becoming subscribers on OnlyFans. But if you don't already have an audience, there's probably is there any internal discovery process in the platform? Like are subscribers to Aella shown some kind of feed where they're exposed to new people they might want to subscribe to, or is there none of that?
So I think that there is some sort of recommendation thing. I haven't really spent too much time on the buyer side. There is a huge ecosystem of girls advertising each other. There's like this big internal trade, like you can pay other girls to post you on their feed.
Really?
This is a massive thing. So this is one thing to look into if maybe you're just starting out, is to like find another girl who's like kind of similar to you in pricing and appearance, and then be like, hey, like either we swap ads. So I post a thing of you, you post a thing of me, or I'll just pay you.
Have you done any of these advertising partnerships with anyone?
Yeah. I tried a few. Yeah, I don't, it's hard to tell if it's worth it. I think that like I probably need to put much more effort into it to like identify a good person in order to like actually get something out of it.
Right. Interesting. So you were actually saying you would discourage people from doing this because you think it's harder than it seems and many people would fail and it would kind of suck?
Well, I just want to be realistic. Like
Mm.
hearing me talk about it, being like, "Yay, I made like this amount of money in 1 month," and like citing all these huge figures. Um, like I just want to like caution that this is actually like the end result of a lot of work that I did earlier in my life in this sort of field. So it's like it's pretty unlikely that you will just be able to like skyrocket to that point really fast. Um,
Okay. Interesting. Now, but what if you're hot? It can't be that hard, right? If you're hot and you're willing to put out pictures in like public places like Reddit or Twitter or whatever, I
yeah,
mean, right? I mean, I guess I'm thinking if you're, let's say you have a Twitter following, even a modest one of like anywhere above like let's say 2,000 Twitter followers, and you're like in the 75th percentile of hotness or higher, like you can, it's probably pretty easy to make a good amount of money, probably, I would
yeah.
think, right? Or no?
It depends on what range you're talking about. I think probably if you have 2,000 Twitter followers and you're in the 75th percentile range and you work pretty hard, you could probably easily hit at least 2K a month. I think seems pretty reasonable over give work for a month and then you probably will hit around $2,000 a month.
Right. Right. Yeah. And actually, while we're talking about hotness, what's your sense of like the average hotness on the platform? Are there like a fair number of like pretty unattractive people, or is it all very hot chicks?
There's everyone. I mean, again, it's very similar to camming. I mean, I think if you want to like see a more accessible version of what OnlyFans is, go check out like a cam site, scroll down the feed, and like get a sense of like what the attractiveness is like, and the attractiveness of the top girls versus the bottom ones. And I think you'll see a very, very similar sort of distribution on OnlyFans.
Okay. Right. And so you're basically saying it's a high variance.
Yeah, and you don't have to be that attractive, and you can still probably make some sort of money.
All right. All right. Fascinating. Fascinating. Well, thank you so much for being candid and for giving us a glimpse on the inside of how OnlyFans works and sharing, your tips and tactics. You were very forthcoming, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And you're very good at asking questions. Like you have a question like no matter what part of the conversation we're in, which is really cool.
Oh, that's cool. I really appreciate that. I definitely have not always been, I don't think, but perhaps I've gotten better at it. So that means a lot to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, best of luck. Aella, I'm very happy for you, honestly, because it's good for you. It's awesome that you're making mad money and that your life is pretty much like kind of transformed pretty rapidly for the better. So I'm very happy for you. And yeah, I mean, something I want to say just real quick before we wrap up is that like, I'm actually a pretty like prude Christian dude. And I'm like not really into like sex things. I tend to think like this proliferation of sexual liberalism is like, very questionable, honestly, for like the good of society. But personally, like I think that whoring your brain is worse than whoring your body, honestly. Like I think whoring your brain is just as evil or potentially even more evil. And I think we all kind of in a kind of contemporary civilization, we're all kind of forced to, play different games and I don't know. I mean, so yeah, I'm very non-judgmental in that regard. But I'm kind of just like wanted to add to what you said about like, I'm just trying to make clear, I'm not like telling everyone they should get into this, like, I think it's complicated, right? And I think everyone has to be the judge for themselves of like what they believe in and what they're comfortable with. So I'm definitely not trying to, I'm just very curious and very open-minded. And I don't like judge or censure this type of adult work. But I'm just trying to also make clear to people listening to this that I'm not like super telling people to do it either.
I would never have guessed based on how open you were.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I'm a bit of a prude and Christian type, like in my own personal lifestyle, but I'm just genuinely open-minded and curious, and I don't pretend to know what's good for other people, and I don't pretend, and I honestly think like, I really do think that actually, even from a Christian perspective, I think whoring out your brain is like more sinful than whoring out your body, frankly.
I know that we're like at the end of a thing, but I have like what?
Oh, you go for it. I'm not in a rush. If you're not in a rush, I'm not in a rush.
What part of the Bible are you citing here?
Oh, none. I'm not a good Christian or like okay. a well-educated one or anything like that. I'm just saying I have a kind of country bumpkin, like Christian, provincial kind of like moral taste buds myself personally.
Okay, so it's like your general sense of morality is that like whoring your brain is bad, but it's not like necessarily a Christian thing. You just also happen to be kind of Christian culture.
Yeah. I'm not making some kind of like big, like sophisticated Christian theological argument or whatever. I'm just saying I see kind of culture and sex things the same way I see like media things. Like I think like violence in movies. I think there's way too much violence in movies and violence in video games. Like I think it's actually bad and I would prefer to live in a world where there's like less violence in movies and video games personally. But I'm not like some boomer like censuring or telling kids not to watch violent movies or it should be banned or anything like that. You know what I mean? So
Okay. It's like your personal aesthetic of the world involves a world where there's less violence.
yeah, for sure. Or on some level, I'm really just testifying to my own very idiosyncratic kind of taste buds, which is to say, like, I don't like seeing violence in movies. Like I shudder at it. I'm uncomfortable with it. And same thing with sex. I don't like seeing sex in movies. Like I find sex scenes in movies to be like very painful and difficult to watch. I mean, I like having sex. I'm like a healthy, I'm sexually healthy and have like pretty, I think, normal levels of sexual chemicals and all of that. But seeing sex in movies, like I could do without it. And I think we'd probably have a better society if like sex in movies was banned.
Do you watch porn?
I try not to, and I do think as a man, as I do think that adult men should try not to. I think it's better for adult men to not, especially if you're married. But I'm honest enough to say that sometimes I sin and watch porn. Yeah.
Are you subscribed to r/nofap?
No, I'm not like gung ho on any of these kind of like anti-porn or anti-masturbation things, but I am sympathetic to them a bit. Like I do think that especially if you're an adult married man, I do think that watching porn can have very unwholesome effects on your life. I do think masturbating can have unwholesome effects on your life, for sure. I do think those things, but I'm not an angel. I sin and I succumb to temptation sometimes. So I'm honest about that, and that's one reason why I don't judge anyone, because who am I to judge? I'm no perfect person. But no, the only reason I even kind of brought the conversation into this is because, I genuinely don't think that doing OnlyFans or selling nude pictures or selling videos of having sex, I genuinely, even though I'm a kind of prude Christian type of person, I honestly don't think that selling nudes or selling sex videos on OnlyFans is any worse than selling your brain essentially to some like mainstream institution who you pretty much whore your brain out to. I think like people who are like writers or authors who pretty much just like toe a kind of mainstream ideological line for their own income and status. I honestly think that's like a far more evil and sinful kind of compromise with the devil than I think OnlyFans is. I think like sharing nude pictures and sharing sex videos is actually relatively inane compared to the different types of like compromises with the devil that other people make, I think.
The vocabulary you're using is really funny because I just went through this whole like interview with you talking like very explicitly about porn, and then I'm hearing like words like sin and devil, and I know you're not judging it or anything. It's just like a funny sort of like aesthetic contrast between the two discussions.
Right. Yeah. I certainly hope you don't feel judged in any way whatsoever. Obviously, I think you're cool. I think you're cool and I consider you a friend. And so yeah, no, not at all. I guess I have a, I don't know. I see the world like suffused with sin. Honestly, I see sin everywhere. I think to survive in modern civilization, we are essentially forced to make all kinds of compromises with the devil. And I see that everywhere, honestly.
Devil.
What's that?
You keep saying the devil.
Yeah. I mean, I don't believe in like mythological creatures or like superstitious, supernatural entities. But I do think that the devil is a perfectly defensible kind of social scientific category. Like the devil is just a kind of loose anthropomorphic kind of shorthand for real forces, I think. I mean, you used to be a Christian fundamentalist. Do you not agree on some level with what I'm saying?
I don't think I believed in the devil as a mythological creature, and now I don't. And
do you think that evil is a thing? or like just extreme bad, right? I mean, you're a rationalist, right? So you must think that there is on some level wrongdoing, like there's a meaningful sense of, or there's some meaningful way of naming serious wrongdoing, right?
So it's like on some level, yes, like you can be like, hey, you stole my ice cream, like that's wrong, right? So and on that level, I'm like, I'm down with them. It's like a word that conveys like a quick thing. I think philosophically on like a very deep level, no, I don't think it's very sensical at all.
Hmm.
I don't think I believe in evil or wrongness.
Fair enough. But if you think that there is that wrongdoing is a thing, and there's good behavior and bad behavior, when I say the devil or satanic forces or any of these kinds of silly terms, all I'm talking about are the kind of dimensions of human nature that pull us or gravitate towards wrongdoing, right? Like as human beings, there are many pressures, right, that pull us in the direction of bad behaviors, right? You can tell that on a totally scientific evolutionary type of explanatory model.
Yeah, like so you're like non-prosocial, like selfish behavior is what you mean when you say bad?
In some contexts, that would represent it. Yeah. So for instance, like defecting from positive sum games, right? Like you can always make promises to cooperate with someone, right, and then screw them over because it's in your own interest, right? But it's bad. It's a net welfare loss, and it's bad for the other person also. There are like at many margins good reasons to act in a shitty way, and I think that that kind of suffuses civilization. Like in a lot of ways, I think the whole kind of Christian teaching is pretty much like these shorthands that try to make people alert to the many ways throughout human life you're constantly it's going to constantly be in your self-interest to kind of fuck people over. But if you do that, it's really unwise. And if you can simply commit to a wholesome lifestyle, that in the end, actually, it's like super rational to do that.
I have a desire to continue, but also I have a desire to not continue right now because I have other things I need to get to doing soon.
Yeah, of course, we've been talking for some time now. So,
but I would be possibly curious, and because like I have a whole bunch of questions coming up around.
Well, Aella, if you enjoyed this talk as much as you enjoyed the first one, we can absolutely do a third one at some point for sure. I would love that.
Sure. And I wish you luck with all the cool people that I'm sure you have lined up for this series.
Thank you very much. Thank you for kicking it off with me. I'm sorry if I brought this into weird territory. I wasn't judging you whatsoever at all.
I didn't mean that you were judging me. It was just amusing to me to like have that.
Yes,
have that like the porn interview like into talking about sin. It's just very funny.
Yes, of course. Well, I get what you're saying for sure. I'm not a very like polished or professional interviewer, and I'm just a kind of crazy guy with a lot of weird ideas. So sometimes I blurt out like weird ideas that have no connection to anything we were just discussing, and all of a sudden people have no idea where we're going. But I think
I like it. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
If for what it's worth, the people that are in the room with us right now said that they liked it too. They were like, "Oh, this is getting juicy now." Anyway, Aella, I'm very happy for you. I'm glad things are working out for you. And thank you so much for being so candid. I think people will find this very interesting. And I think there's a lot to learn here for other people who are pursuing any number of other kind of adjacent digital hustles. This has been chock full of interesting kind of economic, social, and strategic and tactical insights. So thank you again so much for sharing.
It's my pleasure.
All right, Aella, I'll see you around. All right, you're free to go now.
Okay, bye-bye.
See you later.